Rev up your engines. Today we got an 04 4Runner. It's 20 years old. It's only got 73,000 miles on it, so this guy doesn't drive much. Now you can see he really takes care of it, because even though he's in Connecticut, it's not rusted at all. Either that or he did a really good job of hiding it. We'll look underneath, and no, it's in excellent shape. Realize, of course, these are all made in Japan, and they are full frame. Now, they're solid built, and you have to pay for them. Even 20 years ago, he bought it new for $33,000 plus. And people wonder, how come they're so expensive, even used? Because they can last so long. They got solid frames. Toyota does a pretty good job of rust-proofing them. Even 20 years ago, they were doing a good job rust-proofing them. Heck, even 30 years ago, they were doing a good job rust-proofing them. My silicone isn't rusted, yeah? It's not something that you really got to think about with these, like with a Ford or a GM or a Chrysler, that the wheel wells are going to rot out. These don't particularly have that problem. Like I still got the original wheels. Now, if you had a GM product, for example, those wheels would be pitted, they'd have holes in them, right? But no, they really make these things in Japan. As we look under the hood, you see one of the reasons these things are so reliable. It's their V6 engine. These engines have really good reliability, and this is a new enough one that it doesn't have the stupid rubber timing belts and metal chains, so you don't have to think about anything. Toyota says 2025 they're not going to make these anymore. They're only going to have turbo 4s, and I think that is a big mistake, Toyota, because these are heavy vehicles, and if you put a 4-cylinder turbo, it's not made for this. It's just made for EPA gas mileage ratings, which is a bunch of horse manure. You get a turbo car and run it on a dynamometer, it gets great gas mileage. You get a turbo car and run it on the road, it gets horrible gas mileage if you drive fast, if you tow stuff, or if you're just driving a heavy vehicle. It doesn't make sense. They've had these things forever with the V6s. Well, actually the original ones had 4s and 6s. They couldn't sell many of the 4s because they couldn't get out of their own way. Now sure, the new ones are turbo 4s and they'll have more acceleration because of the turbochargers, and they have a hybrid version too, but guess what? They're going to wear out faster. They're not going to last as long as these do. This engine doesn't burn any oil. You get a 20-year-old turbo 4, I guarantee you that baby's going to be burning oil. Extra pressure, no engine can take that kind of pressure. Over time, things wear out from the extra pressure. A normally aspirated engine is much better. And the V6, of course, has V6 torque. So it's great for pulling stuff, carrying itself around. You just lose a lot with a turbo 4. And from my own personal experience, this is a 4-wheel drive system. You can turn it on or off. Turbos don't work so great with the 4-wheel drive systems. They do have a tendency of wearing out transfer cases and stuff faster. Everything that a turbo does, more power, it does it by higher RPMs. You wear everything out. The 4-wheel drive system, the engine. These things work perfectly fine. They'll go 5, 6, 700,000 miles. Why are they getting rid of these other EPA gas mileage nonsense? But really, why don't they just offer a 6 and offer a 4? And you know what they'd find? Everybody would be buying the 6s that knew something. Now everybody's praising Toyota, and rightfully so, for going to hybrid cars, saying, we don't believe in battery electric cars. Hybrid cars are it. Now everybody's buying hybrid cars, right? But Toyota, please don't make a mistake and get rid of this engine. There are people that want this engine. And if you find your sales starts going down because you're putting a 4-banger on what used to have a 6, blame yourself for getting rid of one of the best engines you ever made. Doesn't make sense to me. They did the same thing this year with the TRD Tacoma. They only offered a 4-cylinder turbo. They got rid of the V6. That's why my son bought one the year before, a Tacoma TRD, because he wanted the V6 and 4-wheel drive. He doesn't want a 4-cylinder turbo, and there's a lot of people actually that are that way, and I think they're a mistake getting rid of an engine like this that can run forever just in the hope of getting better ratings for their gas mileage. I mean, it's a big mistake if you ask me. But be that as it may, you check the interior, look, it's still in great shape. The cloth seats last the longest. You got lots of room in the back seat, lots of room in the trunk. Start up. Toyota starts right up, no problems. There's your 4-wheel drive system. You can set it any way you want electronically. Black and chrome and black backward gauges, everything you can see. Now, of course, it is a modern car, but not too modern because, look, it has an actual emergency brake. Not that electronic crap the new ones have. 20 years old, it's still got a bunch of USB plugs on it, and it's got a 12 volt 120 watt power receptacle there. 20 years old, doesn't have much on a steering wheel, just your stereo stuff and some modes you can change. It's nothing fantastic. In the back, they can open and close, which is nice. So let's get my fancy scan tool out, we'll hook it up. Diagnostics, do an auto scan, and there's no trouble code, so we'll look at live data. So start her up. Up she goes. No trouble codes. Short-term fuel term is 0. Bank 1 and bank 2. Air fuel ratio. The airflow meter is good. The equivalence ratio is 1.001. Now it's 1 is perfect. It goes between perfect and 1/1000% off. So they make these things well, right? Like I said, the guy's been driving this for 20 years. Man, he's only got 73,629 miles, so he doesn't drive it much. So I really wouldn't expect anything to be wrong, so let's take it for a road test. Before I get going, look at the nice dash. Well, that's because it had that sticky Toyota dash. And years ago, the Toyota dealer did replace the entire dash. So if you have one and it goes bad, whine at Toyota. They will replace them at certain times. They didn't make them right, and a bunch of these, they were sticky. And this is brand new, and it was years ago, and you can see that what they replaced it with isn't sticky at all. Backup camera, because he replaced the system and put a backup camera system in place. Why buy another car when all you gotta do is buy something like this? Well, where you go? Now you got a backup camera, right? Now this is an actual 4-wheel drive vehicle, so we can fly over the giant bump, no problems whatsoever. So I got the original struts on it because, hey, it's only got 70-something thousand miles. And look, on these horrible roads in Rhode Island, hey, it still goes really smooth. Like I say, they really know how to make these things in Japan. Yeah, you're going to pay for it, but they can last an awful long time. At least with these V6 engines. Like I say, the Turbo 4s, not a big fan. Little turn signal flash on the mirror there. Still nobody to the left, so here we go. It gets up and goes for a heavy vehicle. Smooth shifts. Anything you expect. Now, of course these things are gas hogs. It's a big, giant, heavy vehicle with a big frame, and I don't care. They could put a Turbo 4 in it. It'll still get horrible gas mileage. I found the same thing with the Tundras, only they went from a V8 to a V6, and the gas mileage with the V6 was really very little than the V8, maybe 2 miles a gallon on the highway better. And when towing stuff, it's horrendous. I just met a guy with a Tundra V6. He pulls a food truck. He said he gets like 4 or 5 miles a gallon pulling the food truck. So much for their turbocharged V6 instead of the V8 that the Tundra had. And I feel the same thing about this. Now, these had a V6 and they're downgrading it to a Turbo 4. Big mistake, Toyota. Because look at this thing. It looks fine, it runs fine, and it's 20 years old. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing going down the road 20 years from now. So the case of they don't build them like they used to, well, this is a prime example of it. You could find somebody that didn't drive much like this guy, and if they're ever going to sell it, he's not going to sell this because he loves it. But you find maybe an older couple or somebody that's got one, it's got low mileage, jump on it, baby, because it's going to hold its value. It's a solid frame. Anything on it can be fixed, and they can run 400,000 or 500,000 miles and more easily. So there you have it. Now you know why these things cost so much money, because they're so well made that a 20-year-old vehicle runs the same as it did the day it came off the factory floor in Japan. The Japanese just do a better job building the stuff. There's no arguing that. And yeah, you're gonna have to pay money for one of these things, but hey, they can run forever. And the one advantage of these being made in Japan is, you might have read about some of the Toyota trucks and SUVs having rotten frames in the past, right? Those were all American-made ones which had frames which were made by an American company. The Japanese ones made in Japan did not use the American frame. So if you see J on it, you don't have to worry because they made them right and they don't rust. It was the American-made vehicles that had the American-made frames that, of course, the Americans screwed up, tried to save a nickel. They didn't coat them right, and they all rusted. This thing lives on the East Coast in Connecticut. There's no rust on it because they made them correctly. You can find one of these. Hey, and if you really like them and you want a new one, hurry up and buy one, because 2025, they're all going to be Turbo 4s. And to me, that's a downgrade. You can't beat these things. Why change something that works? It's beyond me, but hey, that's corporations for you. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.